to YouTube afterwards, so everybody can refresh there. Hey, welcome to Salesforce Marketing Architects Community Group session on consent and permission management. I'm here today, name's Timo Kovala, the community group leader, and today we have an awesome guest from Denmark, from Copenhagen, Lukas Lunov, a recurring guest already. This is your second time, so welcome back.
Thank you.
Really pleased to have you with us today. Before we get started with Lucas's session, I'm just gonna show a small teaser about what we have coming up in Q2 from April to June. Can you guys see my screen, by the way? So, Lucas, please confirm.
Yes, it's there. Yeah.
Great. And you can see the presentation, I take it. Good. So we have awesome stuff after today as well. So Aishwarya will be presenting a topic on content architecture. She is one of the top voices in India in the marketing space. She's a very technical marketing architect as well. So we can expect a deep dive. So I would definitely recommend joining this one if you are struggling or planning to renew your content architecture, including CMS and etc. And then we have Pato from US, and Pato is gonna talk about journey orchestration in May. So we have one session each month, and everything's part of the marketing fundamentals series. And finally, the last session of Q2 will be hosted by Jenna Matson, also from the US, on data quality and hygiene. Very important topic if you're considering any data-driven marketing, especially if you're going into agentic, but even like the more old school automated journeys, they all thrive in quality data and having good data hygiene. So please join all of the three sessions if time permits. Yeah. But that's all. Yeah, maybe one more thing. So follow us in the Trailblazer community group. So you can just search for Salesforce Marketing Architects, and then you will find our group. So join the group so you get automated notifications when we have new events coming up. And also go to YouTube, find Salesforce Marketing Architects. It's just, as you can see, the URL is very simple. And click subscribe. And that way you will receive a notification every time we upload a recording of a session, so you can watch them anytime at your leisure. But that's it from my side. Now it's off to Lucas, our star of the day. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Timo. So welcome, everyone. Just a quick introduction. I just realized I didn't put the bio slide in my deck, assuming the whole world knows me already. No, just kidding. But it is a pleasure to be here. Timo, thank you for inviting me again. My name is Lucas. I have a history of more than 14, 15 years now with CRM and marketing automation, and most of them are spent in the Salesforce ecosystem. I've had the pleasure of being 6.5 years as a senior program architect at Salesforce, where I've been doing marketing cloud rollout projects in the Northern Europe. But today, I'll be presenting a few bits about consent management, and I think it's a really interesting topic, mainly because a lot of things are going on with consent management now, especially when you look at how the platform is evolving from the old marketing cloud engagement to the marketing cloud next. let me see. I can see that my screen is being shared,
Yeah,
so all is
we
good.
can see. Hey,
Yep.
just one more thing I forgot to
Yes.
mention is
Sorry.
that everybody, please put your questions, comments in the chat. Everybody's on mute, so you won't be able to voice them, unfortunately. But you can always type your questions there. I will be moderating the chat throughout the presentation, so let's keep it conversational, right, Luna, Lucas? So you can.
Yes, indeed.
And Adam was already asking, will we get the slides later? So, Lucas, what do you think?
Only if, well, it depends, Adam. Since you're in Copenhagen, I know you can bribe me with a beer, and I'll give you the slides. But no, I think both the slides can be, the slides can be shared, and and I know, as you said, Timo, the recording will also be available on YouTube. So to anyone who knows someone who couldn't be here today, feel free to share the recording with them afterwards. And I think, Timo, you'll be probably sending out some follow-up emails with.
I will always send a follow-up email with the recording link, and I can also include an attached PDF of the presentation if, Lucas, you're okay with that.
Of course, I can for sure do that. And Duncan, Foster's maybe, or Stella. I prefer Danish beer. We have a really good craft beer here. But enough about the drinking problems. Let's move on with the presentation. So again, thank you for having me here. And as already introduced myself, we'll be going through the consent and why it is important. So I had really, struggled to kind of strike the right balance between being strategic, being technical, being focused on one platform, comparing different platforms. So again, I with so many people, as you said, Timo, we had a few hundred people signing up for the session, which is really good to see, and it's obviously a lot of different expectations coming into this type of a call. And for me, it's been, I'm doing my best, kind of giving you the guidance, and if you don't think that I've covered specifically what you are here for, feel free reaching out to me on on LinkedIn, on Trailblazer groups, anywhere that I'm available. I'll be happy to give you some more clarification if there are some topics within the scope of content management that you would like some more clarification on. So let's move on. And back in the days, the good old days, we really were the Wild West, us in marketing. Sometimes we were lucky to collect some consent before we sent out any communication, but then something like GDPR came, and suddenly people started to take all of the consent seriously. But again, I don't want to do consent management because I have to, otherwise I'll get fined. I like to do consent because I want to build trust with people that we are communicating with. So I think for me, it's a differentiator as I'm writing here, because if people, can see that what we are sending, what we are emailing, what we are texting, what we are pushing to the apps, if they can see that, yes, you are operating within the boundaries of what I have given you, then I think we have a better case rather than sending out hundreds of thousands of emails, most of them being flagged as spam. Not only it really erodes the trust, it erodes our IP reputation. It means that suddenly Microsoft and Google are starting blocking us and our emails are going to spam. So it is, something that is really, really important to make sure that with the channels that you're using today, we have the whole consent in place for the channels that are historical. But now in the age of AI, it's even more important that people, they can see their data being processed with AI. I see a lot of different solutions like Agentforce and also external solutions with AI where you can have your engagement data, your first-party data crunched, and you can have specific tailored messages sent to you in your inbox. But that also, requires us to collect the consent for data processing with our external data processors. So again, it's really, more important than ever that we get this consent right. I can see that a lot of people are already posting questions.
There was one question
Yeah,
from Rami
yeah,
on the best practices for aligning unsubscribes and preference setters from SFMC to MC Next, but I think you will come to that later on, right? So
yes,
just didn't want to
yeah.
jump.
No,
jump
yeah.
the gun.
I'll be going into how unsubscribe works in both the classic MC and MC Next. But let me just go through just again back to the fines and the stick. So I was talking about the carrot, which is you need to build trust with the people that you are engaging with, and if you don't, you'll get the stick. So it's not I mentioned GDPR, but it's just the European example. I know people are joining this call from around the globe, so you'll have a lot of US legislations. The US is a bit more, complex because the legislation is very much state specific and not national. And then we have the DPDP in India, which is also something that is worth keeping an eye out for, given the India's size as a market. Yeah, I've been name dropping a lot of legislations, but no, I am not a lawyer. So I think each time the consent topic comes up when I'm doing advisory, people ask me, what would you recommend? My answer is, I will for sure recommend you not to listen to what I tell you, because again, I'm not a lawyer. When it comes to the consent topic, how is the best practice? What can we allow ourselves to do within the consent that we are collecting? This is very much important to say. It's something that is very much up for interpretation. So it's up to the single legal team in your company or in your client's company or your legal advisor to say, I can only tell you how to build it from a more technical, conceptual perspective. But the whole legal part, I'll leave out of this conversation. What is important before we go even further is to understand what is consent and what are preferences. So, for example, let's take an example of an e-commerce store which offers clothing for men, women, and children. Whenever I do want to sign up to their newsletter, I need to provide consent first and foremost. So consent, that's the underlying, that's the fundamental, that's the main switch, as you can see, that turns everything on and off. If I don't have power, if I don't have consent, never mind what else I turned on and off, I'm not allowed to do anything. So this is like the mandate. This is the text, the consent text is also something important that I'll get back to later. The consent text defines what data are you collecting, how are you processing it, what the purpose of this data processing is, what type of communication are you allowed to be sending, and what type of channels do you you will be using. And you will see that there's a checkbox whenever you sign up to for example, a newsletter. It has this description of, or it should have, if it follows best practice, what are you, kind of allowing this company to do. But then we have preferences. So that's the, as you see, that's the volume knob. It kind of turns things up or down. It's much more granular than just on and off. in my e-commerce example, the preferences can be, yes, I would like to receive communication about clothing for men, but not clothing for women. Or I'm interested in sports, so I would like to have your offers on running clothes and running shoes. But you cannot have that option without the consent. So it is kind of like a two-step approach. The consent is the primary thing, and the preferences is once you have the consent. Once you have the consent, then it is something that you can then turn on and off. Tony, does B2B follow the same legislations as B2C? Not really. I wish they did. No, I've been, sorry.
Yeah, I would add that if we look at GDPR particularly, it doesn't really make an explicit distinction between the two. So, I mean, you still have to get like consent. It's still person on the other side, but that's only GDPR. So it may differ between different legislations. So you have to basically just go by like each locality, and even within the EU, there's differences. Like, for example, in the DACH countries, Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, that they have even stricter policies regarding like e-privacy and consent. So wish we had a simple answer, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly. And this is, whenever I'm asking someone from legal, especially around B2B, they say there is very, very, because it's difficult to have a straight answer just by looking at the different regulations and the different legislations, because it's just, a legal paper. What the lawyers are looking at are, court decisions, because that also tells you how this legislation is understood by the courts. So until you have sufficient decisions by courts on how to interpret the legislation, it's all about, try, and we will help you if you get in court. Okay, thank you. That was that was very interesting. It's something that is not very helpful. But again, I'm not a lawyer, so please, consult anyone who gets paid more than I do, because I heard lawyers have a really good salary. Core architecture and data model. Now we're starting to have something that is actually resembling an architect session and not something from law school. So back to the whole, Sales Cloud and all the old school consent management. When you have contacts or leads or anything in Sales Cloud, you had the email opt-out and do not call checkbox. Again, it's a Boolean. It's an active opt-out. It's not even an active opt-in, which is basically quite ridiculous that you still have that field in the data model. It is a thing of the past. But again, it is something that we can't really rely on that. Not for B2B, not for B2C, because it just doesn't hold enough information of what you can and cannot do, especially if you have not, if you have not provided an active opt-in, you will not be able to use it. So it's an implicit opt-in, which is the last thing you want to do. I see, questions keep coming in. I think I'll be focusing on slides. I would really like to answer the questions. So Timo, if I maybe could ask you to keep an eye on for the questions, and maybe, select one or two, select some that you say, oh, this is actually quite interesting. Feel free just to read them aloud, and we can maybe go through them together, right?
Well, now that you say, there's one from Lakshmi that is sort of relevant for this topic, is that is there any known risk or checklist for the consent management while migrating from MCE to MC Next. I think this is sort of related to the previous one.
I think I'll go through this later on, because if you don't, consent management, it's a combination of business processes and technical architecture. In MCE, if you have MC out of the box, your consent management is your all subscribers list. You can have a status of active and status of unsubscribed. That's almost like having the email opt-out box checked. And the same with with other channels in Mobile Connect. You can select the stop keyword and opt out of SMS communication. But that's very, very basic. So depending on how you have built your consent management in MCE, if your MC is connected with core CRM or not, there's a lot of different tracks you can take migrating from MCE to MC Next. But in the interest of time, I'll just move on. Why is it not enough with the checkbox? So you remember a few minutes ago, I talked about when you go to the e-commerce website, you have the newsletter subscription, and then you can say, yeah, there's a text here. I need to accept the consent before I can submit my form. Something that a lot of people forget is a consent is not a static thing. Consent should and will change over time. So imagine that we start our company today. We don't have a lot of ambitions for our marketing communication. So we just have email, and we just have very, very few things that we do. So if you say, oh, we start with the version 1 of our communication, so we ask just for minimal permissions. But again, now we are a bit more ambitious. 6 months from now, we update the text on the website saying, oh, now if you submit this form, not only we will do what we said in version 1, but we also want to have, using your profile, so your purchase history or whatever, to send you related emails and SMS. So again, now it's a bit more, it allows us to do more than just version 1. And we can then go on to version 3, the version 4. The text in these versions is just an illustration. It's just to show you the more we are collecting, the more we can do. The whole point of this is if we don't have a relationship between the consent text and the individual who we are emailing or interacting with, we will not know what we can do. So let's say Timo signs up tomorrow on version 1, but I sign up in 6 months on version 2. If we only said, oh, both Lucas and Timo have consent. Yes, but only Lucas has consent version 2. So we cannot use purchase history to do anything with Timo. So we need to have some sort of a consent upgrade campaign. We can maybe send out a competition where Timo can sign up for. And when he signs up for that, we will ask for consent version 2. So this is why, again, a checkbox is not enough. We really need that bit more complete data model to do these things. And then we have the data model for data cloud, which is also the similar privacy data model for CRM, where you have contact point consent, communication subscription consent, and I can go on. It can seem, when I saw this first time, I came from more or less the old-fashioned on-off, subscribe or unsubscribe kind of the world. And I thought this is so much over the top. It is complex, but right now in core CRM, there is, I think since version 44 or 48 of the API, the consent API, where you don't need to update each of these objects separately. You can basically combine your request in a single API call to create an individual, create authorization form consent, and all the other records in one go. So yeah, the data model is super granular, but it's needed because, as I said, you really need to be that detailed on what you can do with what data, on which channels, to whom. So yeah, and you need to keep that history of changes because you want to have that audit trail. I will not go into all the objects in that data model. I'll just pick a few of them. I think one of the most important ones is individual. So we can say, who are we? Who does this consent belong to? I don't think that requires a lot more explanation. Then we have the contact point type consent. This is on the contact point. So can I send SMS to Timo? Can I send him an email? And then I can have the contact point consent, which is if Timo has multiple emails or email and multiple phone numbers because it's a work phone and a private phone. This is where we have the contact point. And then the granular one, this is our volume knob. This is communication subscription consent. Do you want to receive communication about children's clothing, men's clothing, yes or no? But all of these consents are actually worthless if we don't have their authorization form consent, because the authorization form, that's the text we have on this slide. It tells you what is the basis for doing everything, regardless of the channel, regardless of the communication subscription. So it is super important to have that in place before we do everything else. And again, this is just to link it all together. This is this explains a bit in writing what do the different components of these of this architecture provide. But let's start going a bit more into the actual marketing platforms themselves. So if you have the first paradigm, yeah, Dominic, this is a really good question. I'll get back to that later. Dominic is asking, how would you resolve the discrepancy between a granular consent model in Core Privacy Center and a simplified consent management model in MC Next? Exactly. I've been really trying to research this properly, and yes, there are gaps. And again, I would love to love MC Next. I would love to say this is the perfect marketing platform, but we're just on our second date. We're not falling in love yet. We're just learning to know each other, and things like this is something that really makes me like, oh, guys, you need to try harder. This needs to be more aligned. It's MC on Core. Why do you ignore the fantastic complete core privacy data model and just have 4 simplified objects? That's a bit annoying. But again, it's work in progress. I'll give my credits to the Salesforce product team. I have a lot of things on my wish list. Being able to benefit from the granularity of the full data model is one. There's back to Lakshmi's question. So, how do you migrate from MC to MC Next? So, what I did on MCE, because I have, I think the standard data model in MCE, which is a non-data model, it really cannot really support the kind of information that you need. So I built my own one to do more or less what the privacy data model does on Core, just in a simplified version. So, for example, I have 5 5 data extensions. One is context. That's where I'm storing, my email address, my phone number, my first name, etc. And I'm using a GUID as the subscriber key that is also generated. Then I have my sign-up log. How this system works is it has a JSON code resource that is basically translating some form submits or API calls to represent all these objects here. So one of them, so the sign-up log basically takes the raw JSON and spreads it across the contact object or data extension where it stores my first name, last name. I have consent, which is where the actual consent is being stored, also with the version. I have sign-up sources to know where did my sign-up come from, and the trigger config. Trigger config is a trigger data extension which tells me if I get a sign-up from specific source, I want to trigger a journey or I want to trigger double opt-in email. All this can be done, and this is basically how it works. It takes this payload here. It receives this as a JSON, as you can see here. It validates that it actually has all the information it needs. It does a lookup on the email address and say, oh, I don't know this guy. Let's generate a new GUID as a subscriber key and put it in the contact data extension. If it does know my email address, it basically just takes and does the upsert to contact for that specific GUID and updates all the other data extension. And if I have configured, a journey or email for the specific source type or source URL, it can also go in and send it. So this is basically, I have an article that describes this in much more details. And Timo, I can share the link to this article as well, where there is the full code for the SSJS code resource, some more deep, in-depth information about how can you model this data model in MCE, because again, there is no data model in MCE, just the all subscriber status. And just one
brief question.
yeah,
I'm really interested about this. I know you don't want to go into too much detail here, but just wanted to check that do you run this on platform with Automation Studio or with from an external service? How have you set it up?
All of this is running internally.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, if people want to have a follow-up session, I can set up a quick. I'm also a Trailblazer community group leader for the marketing Trailblazers in Denmark. So if there is a need to basically go in and set up a session specifically on this, I would love to do that. But I thought actually everyone now is doing MC Next, so people don't care about setting up MCE anymore. But I'll be super happy to to go in depth, present this, tell you best practice, show how it works within MCE. So yeah, that would be super great.
There was one follow-up question. Why not use sync data extension from SFDC with consents? Because SFDC usually starts
because this is a really good question, because this paradigm is MC standalone. In this case, you don't have SFDC. If we go forward here, I'll have an example here next, which will be a scenario where you both have SFDC and MCE. And the last example that I'll be having is MC Next. So I think it was a 3 key focus areas. What happens if you have MCE only without core? I know there are not many of these cases, but there are. These are cases where you really are on your own because you don't get anything given from a data model point of view. Data model is your all subscribers. With a core CRM, Sales Service Cloud, you have the privacy data model. Yes, you have the sync DEs. And the last one is about the MC Next, which is a bit of a different game. Yeah, well, MCE has a subscription list as a consent data model. I don't know if I would call that a consent data model. It's a status. It gives you like subscribe, unsubscribe, or you have publication lists where you can put people on or off. But again, do we remember how old the MCE exact target is? I think they just had their like 25th birthday last year. So, and the all subscribers list and the list management is going, all. Yes, Elian, thank you. Someone found my article. So if people cannot wait for the next session, just follow the link that Elian pasted. Thank you.
I think also the SFDC consent data model, it's quite revealing when you look at it from the point that there's still a fax opt-out as a standard field. So
yeah,
how many of us use fax? Not many.
No, I actually I'll send a link to that as well. I had a fantastic prank for 1st of April, like April Fools last year, where I revealed that Sales was actually announced a fax studio for Marketing Cloud engagement. And people were like, oh, how do I enable that? That's big in Germany. But yeah, that's a sidetrack. Unsubscribe handling, yes. So because this is a data model that goes across multiple data extensions, we need to kind of orchestrate this. So again, we will have a cloud page, that's a landing page, which can then transfer the opt-out, the unsubscribe to the right records in this data model and update the consents. There is a catch, because all subscriber status is like it's living its own life, but also not really. Those of you who are familiar with the list unsubscribe headers in emails, you will know that when I receive a commercial email from Marketing Cloud Engagement, some email providers, they provide a native unsubscribe button in the platform, like in Outlook or in Gmail. And if I click that, I will not go to my option A, I will go to my option B, which is that I don't see anything. I'll just have a confirmation from Outlook saying, yes, we have sent the unsubscribe. What happens here is it, behind the scenes, sends a request to Marketing Cloud saying, I want to be unsubscribed. So what happens is it logs an unsubscribe event, and it updates my status in all subscribers to unsubscribe. So what I need to do is we need to have like an automation studio process running, looking for these recent unsubscribed events and checking that we have people on the all subscribers list who have status unsubscribed, and then update the canonical data model with that. So if you don't observe this behavior, and that's regardless what type of consent management you have in MCE, you will get in trouble, because you will have discrepancies between your system of record for consent management and the all subscribers list. So people will look like they are opted in, but they will not get any communication. Yes, list unsubscribe updates has opted out of email as well automatically. Yes, but only has opted out of email and not the canonical, not the privacy data model. I found some recent screenshots of the Salesforce platform here. So just to go back to the question from, who was this? Yeah, Kirill, why not using these? Well, you can if you have both of these platforms. So we have, again, communication, subscription, consent, blah, 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 contact point type consent, and all that. You'll be using synchronized data extensions. Sorry, yeah, Tommy, really good question, and we should have booked 90 minutes for this. How do you handle resubscribe? Yes, two options. There's my option and there's the correct option. If we start with the correct option, you will just make sure that every time someone unsubscribes, you log the unsubscribe event, because that will be the right thing to do, because you will have your unsubscribe rates on your email sends being reflected accurately. If you just push people to the cloud page and update the data model in your canonical data model, you will not be seeing an unsubscribe percentage for your email send, for your send job. So you will need to log the unsubscribe event every time someone is unsubscribing. And when someone resubscribes, you will need to see, hey, Lucas has subscribed. Does he exist in all subscribers? Yes, he does. Let's set his status to active. So that's the clean option. But what I do is the filthy option. It's the lazy option. Whenever someone is caught in this process where we are querying the unsubscribes, I update the data model in which is the system of record for consents, and I change the status in all subscribers to active. I still have the right consent status in my data model, so the person will not get any emails. And I don't have to care about resetting it to active once this person resubscribes. So that's the quick and dirty way. It doesn't really show you the unsubscribe rates, but again, if you know that limitation, you should be fine. Okay, but if we go to the SFDC and SFMC thing, yes, you use those objects from the consent privacy data model through synchronized data extensions. You query them, you denormalize them into one master contact data. So obviously you will have information about, do you have consent from authorization form consent? Which version is it? Can we send emails? Can we do AI processing? Can we send this person to external audiences in Facebook or on Google? All of that should be covered by the version of the consent. Then you have also the subscription status. Do I subscribe to newsletter A or newsletter B? But how do we then do the unsubscribe here? Yes, again, the email click will go to a cloud page preference center, and we can either use update Salesforce object AMP script to push this information back to our Sales Cloud to update this, or we can use the new-ish consent API that Sales Cloud is exposing. And similar with the list unsubscribe, which I also mentioned before, it's still not handled automatically. So we will need to query the unsubscribes that are coming in from Outlook, from Gmail clients, from mail on our iPhones, and update the same thing back into core CRM, because otherwise we will have discrepancies. And last but not least, we have. Oh, sorry. Do you have any questions? Because I think this is the most common scenario nowadays. So this is why I don't do so much detailed explanation of this process, because I think everyone should be quite familiar with this, because it is so common.
There was a question from Carmen. Is this consent model supporting consent by brand?
Yeah, good question. So yes, you can. So again, when you have authorization form consent, the authorization form consent is basically linking you as the individual through a lot of different objects, but in the end, it links you to the record in your authorization form object. And the authorization form object is basically a list of the different consents you have, historical or more recent, And these consents, it's up to you to decide, is it for one brand, is it for multiple brands? But then you will have, if you have a multi-BU setup where you have multiple brands, brand A is in BU A, brand B is in BU B, and then you have the enterprise BU where everything comes together. Yes, then you will have, then you'll be able to query from the synchronized data extensions and see, hey, does Lucas have authorization form consent for the authorization form for brand A? Yes, fine. Then we'll sync him down to BU A. But he doesn't have one for brand B, then he will not be synced into business unit B. Wouldn't it make more sense to rely on Data Cloud for consent modeling? Yes, if you have Data Cloud. Dominic Kurcha, it is something that can be done, but again, I think it's still something that we can say the scenario here, it's still very, very common. It is most common to have MC and core, so MC engagement and core. And after that, yes, if you go into MC next, you can have a more Data Cloud specific modeling. But here you can do this with Data Cloud, and with Data Cloud, so Data 360, you can also do segmentation there. Because right now we're talking about doing all of this in the old school way with Automation Studio, denormalization of the data model into the master DE using SQL. Yes, if you use Data 360, you can do segmentation there and just activate this segment into Marketing Cloud. But it very much depends on your processes, how much data you have in Data Cloud. But again, in my opinion, this is kind of the baseline, that if you only have Marketing Cloud and core, this is how you'll be going from SFDC to SFMC and back with subscribes and unsubscribes. So we have the third one, which is the MC Next. And this is an interesting one because, as it was mentioned before, it is kind of using the core data model, but it also isn't, because the core data model, it has a lot of objects, and these objects are native core CRM objects. So we can easily update them using AMScript from MC. We can write data directly into them with API. But the MC Next is using DMOs in Data Cloud, and it's using only few of them. But it also has some advantages. So first of all, it starts not with authorization form. It starts with communication subscription, which is an interesting one because, as it was mentioned before in the someone mentioned it. Why is it only having fewer of these objects, and how do we kind of come around that limitation? We'll get back into that. But let's say you set up this communication subscription as the foundation. Then, if you want to send an email, you need to actually select the communication subscription that is the basis for this email being sent. And it's really nice because it validates automatically if you are opted in or not. So it's super, super fine. Another really nice feature here is the list unsubscribe. As you remember, I said that we needed to do a lot of custom hacking to make sure that list unsubscribe actually went all the way back to our system of record. And if you have it in MC Next, your email is closely tied to your communication subscription. In Marketing Cloud, your email is tied to the sendable data extension, and you can also send to multiple sendable data extensions at once and just deduplicate the recipient. But here you have a much more strict relationship between the email and your communication subscription, which means that if I send this email now to Timo, and Timo doesn't go to the unsubscribe page, but just uses the list unsubscribe feature, it will automatically know, hey, Timo received this one because Lucas has sent it to the marketing communication subscription. So we go in and automatically opt Timo out of the marketing subscription, which is really a super nice way of doing it. And this is actually a really cool thing about MC Next, which I really like. It's it's very straight out of the box. It's good.
It's actually like I find that these are, while this is super cool, but it's not actually that different from Pardot users, because like
Oh,
there
sure.
the
Yeah.
list management has been sort of like this. It hasn't been as formalized. It hasn't been called opt-in, but it's more like list membership. But
Yes.
there the data model is quite similar. So if you've used Pardot before, this is not actually that different.
Yeah. And this is also what I keep saying to people, like if you are using Pardot or MCE, transitioning to MC Next is a no-brainer, because it's been very much a B2B tool. It's been closely linked to lead nurturing processes, lead assignment rules, and this is what you can do even better, even faster with MC Next, because it's using Flow Builder. Again, it's much more native to the core platform. And I often use the differentiated where I say, Pardot is a tool, Marketing Cloud Engagement, like Target is a platform. A tool, if you have your hammer or your screwdriver, it's a tool. It's easy to use because you pick it up and you use it, but you can only use it for this much. You use the tool for its purpose. Whereas the platform, you can use it for anything, but you also don't get anything provided. You need to decide yourself how do you want to use it. And this is why projects or customers who are using MCE, they often have super complex stuff going on, also highly personalized emails in AppScript and SSJS, and we can still not really do that to this extent on MC Next. I hope we will get there. This is why we have MC Plus, but that's for a whole different discussion. If you remember my first few slides, we had the main switch and the volume knob, which were two separate things. We had the main switch, which is the consent. This is what am I allowed to do with this person, with the data, with the different data processing and permissions. And then we had the volume knob, which was the communication subscription consent, which was, yes, now we have the consent. What should we do with the communication? Back to the point, a question made earlier today, we have not that the same flexibility in MC Next, because we only have the communication subscription consent, which is why we need to abuse it a bit, because we don't have the authorization form consent. So we need to say, if you have the communication subscription consent that is both serving the purpose of the foundation for data processing and the preference. The problem is, that I wish I could use the authorization form consent, but it's not really there. It sends from it uses the dates from CSC DMO, and it doesn't really care that authorization form consent exists, because the object is there. It's just not being used. So we kind of need to acknowledge this limitation and a bit of do some abusing on in terms of what kind of consent we are using. And if I remember this correctly, you can only have one or multiple. It becomes a bit tricky because you can ultimately you should have like a matrix of preferences in one direction and then the consent versioning in this in the other dimension. But it's you really need to think thoroughly how you do this. And there is not really any best practice here because we're basically building best practice as we go. So we have 3 minutes left. So just to say, you need to close this gap by having this, you need to have this versioning natively built into communication subscriptions. You have the audit trail, which is really interesting and relevant one to say, this is how this person has opted in and out. And you should be able, you can add the whole, capture URL and all that in your capture flow. So again, it is a gap, but it's a gap that kind of can be close to the best practice, but not really there yet. So I don't know what Salesforce will do about this. Again, just to say, these are the objects that are relevant for our sense. This actually shows you that the individual, we have the contact point. So we still have these in our Marketing Cloud Next. But in the end, it's only the communication subscription consent which we are operating on. The others are kind of, underlying supporting, objects. And you will not find the authorization form consent here anywhere. What happens in unsubscribe? Yes, again, it's much more native. So we have the unsubscribe, which is captured if you use the standard preference center, or if you use the list unsubscribe. But you need to be careful if you do it anywhere else, because we have the consent cache, which is persistent for up to 90 days, unless you use some of the native ways of updating consent. So if you have a specific, very edge case for this one, you really need to be careful if that edge case of a custom integration or whatever, does it actually change the consent, or does it change the consent and refresh the consent cache? Yes, 9:30. Wow. Yes, we did it.
Awesome work. Really cool. I mean, this is exactly the kind of content that consent content that I want in the group. It goes deep and it goes practical, but doesn't go too deep. So just perfect. Thanks, Lucas.
And again, as I started by saying, finding the right balance between 3 different platform paradigms, an audience that can both be technical and strategic. It's never super easy. I will share the slides to you, Timo, as PDFs. I'll share the links to the article I have on the on the consent management data model in MCE that you can create yourself if you want to have something granular and you don't have any other systems of record for consent management. You can have a look at that and see how it can fit your requirements, right?
Yeah, and I mean, thanks. And I really urge you to submit the idea exchange request on the authorization form.
For MC Next.
Yeah, and
exactly.
Let's all go upvote for that, because I think it's one of those kind of like must-haves in the future.
Yeah, and I can see that there are some questions about the consent cache. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think it's yeah, I can try to find some resources on that and share, because I think everyone needs to know this. It can be a bit risky if you don't observe it. So I think we are a bit out of time, but I think for me it was important to mention it here, to say, please be aware that there is a thing called consent cache, because if you don't know it and you operate with the dates model, you might see some tricky cases where the consent seems updated, but in the end it is not.
Always
Cool.
the fine print. Cool.
Yes.
Thanks everybody from attending. We had a huge number of people attending, over 100 at some point, so that's really great. Have a great day. As said, follow the YouTube channel to get the notification once the recording comes available, and the PDF will be shared via email to everybody who has registered, including those who were not able to attend but have submitted their email. Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a